Hey, what is going on, everybody? Welcome to Upkick MMA, episode number 193. I am Brendan. UFC 281, Israel Adesanya versus Alex Pereira. We're going to cover the main card here, including the main event. If you're looking for the prelims, it's on the next video. If you're looking for a specific fight breakdown, it's in the timestamp down below. If you love podcasts about MMA, if you like MMA, if you like fight breakdowns, I do all that stuff here. So please subscribe to the channel so you know when the next video is coming out. Let's get into it. Holy crap, guys. Another one of these. Another one this year. Another one. I'm going to say it. Another one. Come on. But this time it was harder to watch. We'll talk about it. So Alex Pereira getting the win in the 5th round. Getting the win, becoming the new UFC middleweight champion in a fight that he was losing in a boring fight. They said it was a good fight. It was not. There was a couple good moments in this fight, but a majority of it was boring, like a lot of Israel Adesanya's fights. Now, real quick, before we get into the breakdowns for round by round, let's talk about a little bit of the talking points beforehand. Okay? Stop telling me that Israel Adesanya's performances aren't good because he's that great. Don't tell me that. Be honest with the listener. Be honest with the viewer. Israel Adesanya's performances are boring because he is facing excellent challengers and he takes the path of least resistance, which is point fighting generally. Okay? He goes in, he point fights, he stays safe, he tries not to make a lot of mistakes, and he uses his technical advantages on the feet to get a win, and usually in a lackluster fashion. Okay? Not always. Not all of his fights are boring, but the last string of them have been, and a majority of this fight was as well. So, Daniel Cormier, I love you. I do. Don't lie to me. I know he's great. And you can say his greatness allows him to play it safe and not coast his way to a victory, but win in a less than spectacular way because he has such control and command of the tools on the feet. You're more than welcome to say that. That's honesty. Don't tell me his fights aren't good because he's that great. You understand why there's a difference between what you said and what I'm trying to say. Second, Joe Rogan. Again, I love the guy. I really do. I appreciate everything about what he's done for MMA, what he's done for podcasting, what he's done for a lot of stuff. I really do. But stop telling me that he pieced up Jan Blachowicz. He pieced up Jan Blachowicz. Real quick, we'll get into the fight, I promise. But I want to talk about this one more time, just to make sure that people who don't know, who happen to watch this, who have watched the fight, they don't have the wrong idea, the wrong interpretation of what actually went fucking down. Okay? Let's look at some data, shall we? First round, Jan Blachowicz, 18-13. Second round, 23-21. He didn't get a takedown until the 3rd round. Piecing him up, I beg to differ. I disagree. Not a single round did Israel Adesanya outland Jan Blachowicz. I'm not saying that stepping up in weight and taking on Jan Blachowicz wasn't a big challenge or that Jan Blachowicz didn't have a great performance. No. I'm saying Israel Adesanya did not piece up Jan. Did not fucking happen. He got outlanded in every single round, including the 2 rounds and then the 3rd round in which there was only a minute of control time on the ground when Jan took him down. And then the rest of the fight. Do not tell me he lost his fight because he got taken down. He lost those 2 fucking first rounds too. All right? Okay, enough of that rant. It's just hearing that narrative over and over again drives me fucking nuts. All right, so the fight started out with Alex running across, trying to front kick, and then they played footsie for about 2 minutes of this first round. So if you didn't watch this fight, honestly, you can skip through a majority of the middle part of the rounds. The interesting things kind of happen near the ends, right? And there was one kind of a stinker of a round here. There were so many leg kicks from Alex in this first round. He landed some really hard ones. Izzy landed a really good right hand at one point that kind of made Alex take pause and take a step back. Alex threw too many naked leg kicks, and it was setting up Izzy, and he gave him the ability to make a read, and he started landing a little bit, which was great. And then Alex landed a really great kick to the body and then a glancing left hook. So they were both landing pretty well. If you want to look at the striking numbers here, they were tied 23-23. Like I said, they were both landing pretty well. But right at the end of the round, with about 8 seconds, or maybe even, no, it had to have been less, because right at the end of the round, probably like 3 or 4 seconds left, Izzy lands a right hand that landed right there, right near the back, like the equilibrium, right on the ear, right behind the ear, and it stunned Alex. And then he swung, the round ended, and then he swung and landed a left hook that nearly put Alex out right at the end of the round. So if you want to look at the striking numbers, Alex Pereira threw less, but he was more aggressive. They both landed a lot of damage, but I would have him out in front until the very end, and then he just, like, he was this close to getting knocked out. Okay, second round. Alex was still super aggressive. Izzy was moving. He was dodging a lot. He was doing a really good job. You look at the striking numbers at this round, 20-17 in favor of Adesanya. He was able to avoid most of those big shots. Izzy attempted a takedown, which was really weird, and then he landed a right hand on the break, which was really nice. Alex landed a couple stiff jabs in this round. Adesanya moves so much better, and he's so technical, but Alex hits hard, and he did land a couple of left hooks and a good knee in this round. Alex landed a head kick, and he was moving forward. He ended up getting a takedown to end the round. That's what stole the round for me. So even though Adesanya did outland him in this round, Pereira, with the damage from those bigger shots that he did land, and then that takedown at the end of the round. Now, I'm not a fan of the guy who takes him down at the end of the round automatically getting it. That's not what happened here. I would argue that it was relatively even as far as the damage goes. And then you go to aggression and octagon control, and he did get a takedown right at the end of the round. Didn't really do anything with it. Doesn't matter. That put him over the top. When there's a tie, it goes to these other things, and I felt like the damage was close enough. If you gave that round to Izzy, I could understand. I don't agree with it necessarily, but I gave that round to Alex. Third round. Now, here's where it was a stinker. So look at these striking numbers, by the way, 23-23, 20-17, 14-8. So not a lot of action, to be honest with you. There was a lot of boring things. And in this round, Alex was not as aggressive to start the round. Then he turned it up after Izzy landed a right hand. I'll mention that later on, because it seems like his only defensive move. They flipped around a little bit, and they end up on the ground. Izzy landed on top. It was sloppy and kind of funny. And then Alex looked like a little kid on the ground. It looked like he's never done it before. He looked so inexperienced. Anybody who takes this guy down who has some semblance of wrestling ability will be able to dominate him, I promise you. Adesanya had really good takedown defense against many grapplers. He got taken down by Jan, but everybody in the division who tried to take him down, they have a problem trying to keep him there. Whitaker in the second fight did a little bit better of a job. You know, there's been moments where people could take him down and hold him down there. Marvin Vettori did it, but nobody's really landing damage with him on the ground, and it's really hard to take him down. So if to say that Alex is like Izzy in that, he's not. He's really not. And when he's down there, he looked like a little kid. I swear to God. He immediately went to his knees and then wasn't fighting the hands properly. His wrist, Adesanya had wrist control, so he's holding onto the wrist, not allowing Alex to post and stand back up. And because of that, Alex just tried to muscle his way out of it. Eventually, he does get to stand up, and then Izzy gets a proper takedown. He got a body lock, and they were talking about how Adesanya's experience is why he won that round. Not really. It started because of some sloppy shit that happened, actually from Alex. He kind of went for a trip, and then they rolled around a little bit, and that's why that happened, right? That wasn't necessarily Adesanya's experience. I think he was just better in those, the scrambles. So at the end of the round, Izzy was playing that half up, half down game. I fucking hate that stuff. Horrible to watch that round, right? When you watch inexperienced grapplers roll around on the ground, it's horrible to watch. It really is. It's kind of depressing. Not my favorite thing. Total striking numbers, Adesanya 14-8. Right, like I said, not a ton of activity. Adesanya clearly won that round. 29-28, Adesanya. So going into the fourth round here, Izzy was able to pressure a little bit more, stay in the center, and Alex was exhausted. So Izzy was landing more. He's fresher. And anytime Adesanya would land something decent, Alex either totally backed out and disengaged, or his only defensive move, walk forward. This shit was horrible to watch. I promise you. You can skip this round. Skip the third round. It's not that great to watch. Yes. Skip this fourth round. Adesanya dominated it, but it was like a traditional Adesanya round where he's just picking them apart, playing it safe, and that kind of stuff. It's really not worth going back to watch. Nothing to break down here. And at this point, I wrote down, I was like, dude, Alex should not have gotten a title shot. Regardless of the outcome, Alex should not have gotten a title shot. It was only the storyline. That's the only reason he was here, is because Alex has two knockout wins over him in one knockout win over him in a decision win over him in a controversial one in kickboxing. Okay. That was the storyline, and they fast tracked him to the title shot. He got to skip over all of the challengers in this division, everybody who would give him problems, anybody with experience, anybody with wrestling ability, anybody with power, anybody who could really give him a test, and he got to skip over all of them. And I think he only had one scheduled 5-round fight. And yeah, he finished Sean Strickland, and it is what it is. Sean Strickland screwed up, and Alex got the knockout. The guy can strike. I'm not saying he doesn't hit hard, but dude, this was bad to watch. He just wasn't able to catch Izzy in this round. So I had Izzy up 39-37, so Alex needed a finish. Alex was pressuring, landing low kicks again. Alex checked a kick, and Izzy dropped it back. It looked real bad, but it turned out Izzy just kind of misstepped and tripped himself. It looked a lot more dramatic than it was. Then Alex hurts Izzy with a left hand, or right hand, sorry. And then Izzy was wobbly. Izzy, and then there was like an exchange where he did crack him. He caught him with a left hand and rocked him real bad. And Izzy's bobbing his head back and forth. And then he landed a good right hand. And then he threw a left hand that didn't glance off the side of his head, didn't really do anything. And that's when Mark Goddard stepped in. So Izzy was bobbling back and forth and still staying active, trying to defend. This wasn't a horrible stoppage, right? This wasn't like so bad, like, because it was such an early stoppage. It's just one of those things where Izzy immediately protested. The second Mark Goddard steps in there, Izzy puts his hands up, like, "Come on, man! Like, give me a second to try and dodge a couple more." Now, Alex could have landed another one and put him out. Alex could have missed 3 shots in a row, and then Izzy could have clinched with him. You don't know, and that's the problem with this stuff, because now it's not definitive, and now we have to hear the storyline. And that being said, there's going to be an immediate title shot, immediate rematch, obviously. They could have kept this going a little bit. This guy, like Alex Pereira, hits hard. I don't think he's a better striker, to be honest with you. He's not cleaner. He's not more technical. None of that stuff. He does have technical striking, obviously. But Adesanya is a much more fluid, technical striker, in my opinion. I think he's a better striker, and we saw it for most of this fight. So if you want to say that Alex Pereira got the knockout, therefore he deserved the title shot, you're fine to make that argument. I don't agree with it. I don't think just because you win a fight doesn't mean you deserved the opportunity to be in that fight to begin with. Okay, you be the best fighter in the world. You still got to pay your dues and work your way through it. He didn't have to do that. Now, going forward, because of this, now we have an interesting rematch. So obviously Whitaker coming off of the win over Vettori, he's beaten Cannonier. He's beat Brunson before. The only guy he hasn't beat here is Strickland and Costa, as he pretty sure he beat Hermanson lost to Vettori, and he beat Darren Till, and Darren Till's already matched up with someone, and he beat Calvin Gastelum. Dude, Robert Whitaker deserves. I know that last fight was actually really close with Adesanya. Not that I felt like he won it or anything. I scored it for Adesanya, but it was really close. And look who Alex Pereira got to avoid. He got to avoid Paulo Costa. Got to avoid Brunson. He got to avoid Hermanson, Till, Gastelum. These guys are relatively new. He got to avoid Brad Tavares. He didn't have to fight Cannonier, but I understand that one because Adesanya just fought Cannonier, so that's fine. But he definitely got to skip Whitaker. Now, that's bullshit. That's bullshit. You want to call Whitaker a gatekeeper? You're more than welcome. You're more than welcome, because that's kind of what he is, right? That's what he's done. And I don't mean it in a negative way. I mean that, he's had his opportunities against Adesanya, and then he just clears out the rest of the division. Like it's one of those situations like Max Holloway and Alexander Volkanovski, who is fighting Islam Makhachev and going to hold up that fucking division and put an interim belt in the featherweight division for some reason. Whatever. Anyway, dude, it's kind of disappointing to see it go this way. Like, had Alex gone in there and just mollywopped Adesanya for all these rounds and shown that he was a superior striker, I wouldn't be so downtrodden right now. But he was inferior. He was gassed out. He was tired. And then in this last round, it wasn't like a Leon Edwards thing where, he was getting out grappled the whole time. I mean, he got out grappled one round, but it's not like he was taken down the whole time and then had to have a miracle comeback. Nothing like that. It's not like it was just lackluster and kind of boring. And yeah, it had an exciting finish, but that doesn't make me forget the other 20 minutes of this fight. Um, I don't know. I mean, I'm not. I'm gonna obviously I watch everything. I'm gonna watch the next fight. I think Adesanya obviously has an excellent chance to become champion again. I think he goes in there with a slightly altered game plan, maybe to clinch up just a little bit more, tighten up his grappling game, and I feel like he has a path to victory. I think this also opens up the title shot for Robert Whittaker. I mean, I think Pereira is a dangerous opponent for anybody with that power, but if Whittaker takes him down and grinds him out, we saw how tired he gets, and we know Whittaker can do that for 5 rounds. So, does that mean Whittaker is a guaranteed victory? Absolutely not. I think that's actually a tough fight for Whittaker. But come on, you don't think he deserves a chance at that? Oh man, yeah. I mean, look at his title run here. Michaelides, Bruno Silva, not a bad win. Sean Strickland, good because he was ranked relatively high at the time, and angling for a title shot, but really that was because it was against Alex Pereira and they were trying to force him into a title, and they gave him a guy that they thought he could beat. They didn't give him a guy who wanted to grapple. That's what happened. That's what we got. And that's that. I'm not super happy about it. I'm just not. It's just that it wasn't that exciting of a fight, it is what it is. All right, let's go to another weird one. Carla Esparza taking on Zhang Weili. Weili Zhang. So, almost what pretty much everybody thought was going to happen happened. Almost. But Carla Esparza did manage to kind of grapple pretty well, especially in this first round. There were some touch and go moments where she almost got reversed, but she hung in there and she was able to do it. But Weili took the center. She used low kicks to start. She was landing some really good hooks when Carla was entering. Carla was able to land some shots of her own, but no real power. You want to look at the striking numbers: 33-5 in favor of Zhang. Carla Esparza was the champion, if you didn't know. Zhang ends up getting the finish here in the second round. So Carla caught a kick, and Weili worked for the back, and they scrambled, but Carla did a really good job. They scrambled around. They rolled around like 3 or 4 times. She did a good job. She ended up on top somehow. And she just kept working and got on top. Carla was able to stay on the ground, land some small shots, and then Zhang kicked her off, and then they were back up. Weili reversed another takedown. Then she got on top, and then she was actually landing elbows and real damage. There was a path to victory for Carla here, and it was through the grappling. She just wasn't able to implement that game plan because Zhang is the real deal. I don't think Esparza is a hard matchup for a lot of these women, and I'm kind of glad Zhang got the first title shot at her because she deserves it to be in there. Because if you look at the rankings here, there's a lot of other women in this division who I believe can beat Carla Esparza. And to be honest with you, like, I know Dern didn't win her last fight. She didn't win her last 2 fights, to be honest with you, but they gave her the decision. But a lot of these women in here, she did finish Jan Shannon, but Marina Rodriguez, Jessica Andrade, Amanda Lemos, and then she won the title versus Rhodes. Like a lot of these women in here, it's like Mackenzie Dern. Had they given her a title shot if she won her last fight, which they would have, I think she would have been champion. And my feelings on that if you watch me before. Like she does not deserve what she's got. Like it's not that she's not good or she hasn't worked hard or got legitimate victories in the UFC. Absolutely, she has. but there's been some really close decisions. A split decision one that she lost. She did. There's no argument that she won that fight. And then she's had lackluster performances. I don't think her skill level is up to par. And, leaning on that grappling, it makes for less than interesting fights. And you end up with like a one-way beatdown a lot of times with moments, right? Like Brian Ortega fights when he's fighting, the upper tier where the guy gets pieced up and picked apart, and then he'll get into an exchange where he manages to lock up the neck or something, and you're like, oh wow, that fight was so close. Was it though? That one guy got beaten up for 24 minutes of that fight, and he had 2 moments in it where he could have gotten the finish. Right? I mean, yeah, it makes for a good storyline, but really was that fight close? Absolutely not. And that's kind of what you get in those situations. So I'm glad Zhang got the title back because I really do feel like, she's a better title holder. Like, you really have to mind your P's and Q's. If you're going to verse her in order to get a win against her, you're going to have to be legitimate. Whereas Carla Esparza, there's so many people who can beat her through a lot of different methods and a lot of different means. I don't think it would have been a legitimate change of hands for a title. You would have had a less than deserving title holder in the strawweight division, in my opinion. So I'm glad Zhang got it. All right, let's talk about a banger. This fight was good, man. Michael Chandler taking on Dustin Poirier. This fight was fantastic. It was exactly what it was supposed to be. There's some dirty shit going on in this fight. I didn't appreciate that from Chandler. Love me some Dustin Poirier. Love me some Michael Chandler. Both guys could really bring it. They have interesting fights. They're fun to watch. Great lightweights. Fun stuff. Dustin Poirier ends up getting the finish here in the third round. So Chandler's, his stance, low and wide, looking for those power, those, jumping in, big right hand, big left hooks, those kinds of things. He throws big shots, and if he catches you with some of them flush, man, you're going to sleep. Throws hard leg kicks. Chandler landed a great right hand and another right hand and then another right hand. Dustin landed a good left hook. Chandler was unloading on him, and then he got the takedown. He got a huge suplex, and then Chandler got tagged himself, and then he hits Dustin Poirier back, and then at the end here, Poirier landed some shots that nearly put Chandler out, and you can make the argument that Poirier won this round. If you want to look at the total strikes, 28 to 23 in favor of Poirier, and especially with the end of that round, how it went. But there were moments where Poirier looked like he was about to, he could have gone out with one more shot. Now, he wasn't visually wobbled because he was against the fence in those situations, but there's an argument to be made for Chandler. I ended up scoring it for Chandler. Looking at these striking numbers, now that I have the benefit of them, I probably would lean towards Poirier, especially with the way it finished. But I felt like Chandler had an argument. Decent takedown, lots of damage coming from him as well. Big leg kicks, those kinds of things. And Poirier obviously landed some damage of his own. It was very close, and I understand, looking at the striking numbers now, knowing that Poirier outlanded him, although I'd like to see the guy counting those because I swear Chandler landed more. But maybe in that last little sequence, Poirier landed some. It was close. And then second round here, Chandler hooked his way in, got a big double leg slam early on. His nose got busted up in that exchange near the end of the first round, and he was bleeding like crazy. But he was on top, so he's bleeding all over Poirier. Mike got the back. There was just so much blood everywhere. Chandler was doing ground and pound, landing some shots to the back of the head. I did not like that shit. He grabbed inside of his mouth at one point and fish hooked him. I did not like that. I actually thought this was a 10-8 round. 18-2 in favor of Chandler. Tons of control time. 4 minutes and 34 seconds. Poirier essentially did nothing but defense this round. That's got to be a 10-8, guys. Right? So even if you scored that first round for Poirier, Chandler's up. I had it up 2017, but like I said, I can be convinced that Poirier won that first round. In the moment, I scored it for Chandler, but it was razor thin. And like I said, like I always say, I don't look at striking numbers actively while I'm watching this. If they pop up on the screen, then I see them, but I try to score it as if I'm a judge. So they don't get to see the striking number, so I try not to make that part of my reason for scoring a round. If you're doing that, that's fine. That you can honestly score a round like that, but that's not the judges don't have that. Should they? Maybe. Probably. And then Chandler went in for a single in this last round. He went in for a single leg, got the lift. He lifted him up in the air, went for a takedown, and then he tried to go for the back and slipped off, got reversed, and then Poirier got the rear naked choke. What a finish for Poirier. What a finish, man. Great win for him. Dude, it's beautiful to see this kind of fight where both guys really gut it out. They work hard, do everything they're supposed to do, and one guy just one guy makes a mistake and the other guy capitalizes on it. I don't think Michael Chandler had a bad performance. I don't think Poirier had a bad performance in any part of this. I felt like both guys came. They brought it like they said they would. In my opinion, this is fight of the night. Okay? Especially on the main card. Fight of the fucking night. Holy shit. This guy, Dustin Poirier, has his record is fantastic. It's fantastic. Look at this. Look at these wins. By the way, there's a lot of them in the UFC since 2010. But you go all the way back here. Max Holloway back in 2012, back when he fought at 145. Chang Sung Jung, he did lose to him, and he lost to Cub Swanson. Diego Brandao, that's a good win back then. Loses to Conor McGregor at 145. Beats Diego Ferreira, who, if you know, you know, he's great. Beats Yancy Medeiros. Great win for him. Joe Duffy, who was the last guy to beat Conor or finish Conor McGregor or whatever back in the day. So he was he was supposed to be the next big thing in the UFC. Bobby Green, that's a great win. Knocked him out. Loses to Michael Johnson somehow. That was weird. Jim Miller, that's a good veteran win. There was a no contest versus Eddie Alvarez, but he ends up getting a rematch with him and then destroys him. Beautiful win versus Anthony Pettis. Destroyed him. Justin Gaethje, just a banger of a fight. Tons of damage both ways, and then he just broke Gaethje. I mean, broke him physically, not mentally. Gaethje never breaks mentally. He just, got the finish. Fantastic fight. Beats Max Holloway, gets a title shot, and loses to Khabib. Everybody did, except for Tebow. Beats Dan Hooker in a slobber knocker of a fight. Beautiful fight. A 5-rounder. Beautiful. Knocks out Conor McGregor twice in a row, one due to an injury, and then loses the title shot versus Charles Oliveira, which is really unfortunate. Like, he was going to lose that fight anyway, or he was teetering on a loss anyway, but Oliveira did get positioned by grabbing the inside of the glove. Not fucking cool. I don't like that shit. We're going to talk about that in a couple fights here. And then gets this win against Michael Chandler. Dude, his record is unbelievable. He's done everything but become the undisputed champion. Like, he's just been fantastic. Dustin Poirier is the real deal. He's legit. He brings it. He's got a well-rounded game, and I think he should be getting a title shot again. But guess what? You don't get a title shot when they lock it up with two divisions fighting each other, even though Islam has not defended his belt once. Oh, not cool. Not a fan. Not a fan of that. All right, let's talk about something sad. Chris Gutierrez. By the way, I mentioned this on a podcast a while ago, but for you new viewers, I met Chris Gutierrez on a hike in Arizona. I was hiking with my family, and we were coming back from the place we hiked into, and I noticed this guy. This is just after he had his win over Dana Baccarat. So he had this beautiful spinning back fist knockout over him, and this was 2 days later. And I'm walking, and I see this guy and probably his girlfriend, possibly wife. But anyway, I see them with some dogs, and people stop to say hi to the dogs, and they don't know who it is. And I look at him, and I'm like, I stop, and I'm like, you look like a UFC fighter. And he goes, which one? What's his name? Trying to quiz me and stuff, and then I drew a blank like a total doofus, and then I guessed, and the girl was like, Pretty close. It's Gutierrez. I'm like, oh, Chris Gutierrez, and like I just said, like I'm a fan. I appreciate like what he does. Like he's a great fighter and all that stuff. He was nice. He was courteous, and this is a situation where he's not there to sign. This is not a UFC event. He's not there to sign stuff. He's not there to take pictures. So I didn't do any of those things. I just said hi to him. Like said, hey, I'm a fan of like MMA. I really like the UFC. I think you're a great fighter. That kind of stuff. And then I just we were on our way. Um, he was very courteous and kind. Like he wasn't. He didn't seem annoyed with the fact that I, like stopped to talk to him for a couple seconds. Um, he was really cool, and I like. It's very rare that I would meet a fighter out in public anyway, and it was just kind of interesting that we're out in the middle, like in the middle of like national park in Arizona. So anyway, I like the guy, and then obviously he beats Frankie Edgar here via knockout, and I mean if you don't love Frankie, I don't. There's something wrong with you, unless you're the biggest BJ Penn fan and you just never let it go. Uh, Chris was he overextended on a kick early. He followed up with a spinning back fist, and Frankie ate it, which was interesting. I thought those kinds of shots would kind of put Frankie on ice skates with his chin being gone. A leg kick from Chris made Frankie adjust, kind of staggered him a little bit. The distant kicks and movement from Chris were amazing. Frankie is just out of range, wasn't able to get anything going. Total striking numbers, there wasn't a ton of them, 10-2. Frankie Edgar really didn't land much here, guys. Um, Chris landed a giant knee that put Frankie to sleep right to the dome. I hate it for Frankie, but what a beautiful finish for Gutierrez. And then at the end of it, he's emotional. He's had a really rough life. His coach has cancer. Like his mom has cancer. Lots of shit going on in his life, and obviously beating Frankie Edgar is kind of bittersweet. Chris said actually when he walked up to Frankie, he said, "Hey, I want to give you my time on the mic so you can go talk about retiring and stuff." And this was Frankie Edgar's last fight. He announced it ahead of time. It's unfortunate the way his career came to an end, but this is the way it works in MMA. Very rarely do you get to see your guys go out on top. Most of the time, they're going to go out like this. Coming from being the champion at 155 somehow, like that's crazy. This guy's fighting at 135 now. I mean, he is little, but the fact that he was a champ at 155 is unbelievable. I mean, he beat Charles Oliveira back in the day, back in 2013. The guy's been fighting in the UFC since 2007. 2007. Beating BJ Penn three times. Twice for the title, and then again when BJ Penn came back for the Ultimate Fighter season was really weird. Cub Swanson, Uriah Faber, Chad Mendez still doing the damn thing here in 2015. Right? And then he loses to Aldo for the title again. Unfortunate. And beats Stevens and Rodriguez. He gave Yair Rodriguez his first wake up call. And finished him in the second round. Then he gets knocked into next week by Ortega via uppercut. Gave Cub Swanson a lesson. He did it to him twice. Then he loses to Max Holloway. Chen Zhang gets a win over Pedro Munoz, which is oddly impressive. Loses to Sandhagen, gets knocked out by Sandhagen via knee, gets knocked out by Marlon Vera in a fight that he was winning, and then gets knocked out by Gutierrez. So it's unfortunate to see him go that way, guys, but that's the way it is. The way it is. Not a lot of fun exits in this sport. Frankie Edgar is obviously a Hall of Famer. He is the UFC Hall of Famer. He's one of the greatest to ever do it in the sport. In different weight classes, being the longevity he's had, some of the amazing fights. If you go back, if you're new to MMA and you didn't watch his stuff back in the day, go watch his fights versus. Oh come on, Brendan. Why is it? Oh my goodness, it's freaking escaping me. Gray Maynard. Go back and watch the fights versus Gray Maynard. Fights that arguably should have been ended, but he made these Rocky style comebacks in them. You want to talk about something amazing? Go back and watch those fights with Gray Maynard. You want to watch him in his heyday doing Frankie Edgar shit, and you want to give him like the kind of due that he deserves on his way out. Don't watch this fight. Go watch those ones and then remember him at his best. Go watch him versus BJ Penn. Him at his best. Um, something to be admired for sure. Okie dokie. All right, let's go to a more positive note, shall we? Dan Hooker versus Claudio Puelles. Oh, good grief. This fight, holy shit, guys. I saw somebody score this for Claudio in the first round. He landed 0 strikes. We'll talk about it. This fight was infuriating to watch. Dan Hooker ends up getting the finish in the second round. Thank God. Hooker was looking for kicks early. He's keeping his distance really well. Claudio was not able to find his way in. Dan just kicking kind of slow. He looked a little slow. He's kicking to the body, to the legs, bringing it up once in a while. Claudio rolls for a leg lock. Dan used that to get the back and then lock his legs around Claudio's legs. Leg. Claudio holding onto the leg, and Dan was just looking at him. Like, this dude was like under there grunting and groaning and like, and then Hooker's just like looking at him like, what are you doing, man? Like, obviously he didn't have the right angle and he wasn't doing anything to Hooker. And that's why, so striking numbers 10-0 in favor of Hooker here. Puelles was, dude, he did nothing. Anyway, Hooker finally got his leg out and landed a bit of ground and pound to end the round. Then a kick to him for good measure when he stood back up. Dan landed a really good straight right hand, and then Claudio rolled again. It was a really annoying round to watch. I gave it to Dan because he landed damage and Claudio landed nothing, and those submissions clearly weren't there. You can roll for submissions all you want, but Hooker clearly wasn't in danger because Claudio was grunting and groaning and trying as hard as he could, and nothing was happening. Dan's face didn't even move. Here's where I got real pissed. Second round here. This is the last fight of the night, or the last fight we're going to cover on this for this video. So let me go off on a little bit of a tangent or rant if you'll indulge me. Hooker landed a right hand and Claudio kept dropping to his knees, and he took a left hook to the face at one point. Claudio he pulled on the gloves of Hooker to try and keep him down there. So real Charles Oliveira move right there, real classy. There was an eye poke. Then he was bitching about that. Claudio was diving on the legs and rolling around, and he was getting booed. He kept diving on the legs so much that Hooker was like laughing when he was doing it and like walking away. Like, come on, man, what the fuck are you doing? Claudio dove on a single and got elbowed for it. Dan Hooker sprawled really well and was able to get his hips out and just elbowed him in the side, doing damage. He didn't want. Oh, and then he didn't want to get up. He was just sitting down after that one. After he failed that one, and then Claudio, he stayed down, and then he got kicked in the body. He dropped and didn't want it. He didn't want to get back up, and he stayed sitting down. Keith Peterson told him to get up. He didn't get up. Should have been a TKO. But he allowed him, gave him a couple seconds to get back up. Another body kick made him sit the fuck back down, and that guy got TKO'd. Good. I'm not saying this kid can't fight or that he doesn't have a future, but you cannot be rewarded for that kind of shit. It's just, all right. So here's what I want to say. I hate leg locks. All right. And like, I get it. They're an effective technique, especially in grappling tournaments, especially in jiu-jitsu. I totally understand that. I hate them for a lot of reasons. The most important reason, and the reason that I think a lot of people shouldn't like them in general, is what they do to the guy who is getting leg locked. Right? We're talking about ripping apart someone's knee. And unlike your arm or a choke or something like that, where you have an opportunity to tap when you start to feel the pressure, if you turn the knee the wrong way, that could be the end of it. Like in a Kimura, you can feel your shoulder coming out, and you can feel it, and you got an opportunity to tap. There was actually a point in the Carla Esparza fight where she was getting Kimura, and she refused. Oh no, that was a Molly McCann fight. Never mind. We'll talk about that one in the next video. But in this fight, it's good that Hooker didn't take any damage to his legs, but I'll tell you, damaging someone's knee like that, I understand it's an effective technique because the opponent the whole objective in this sport is to hurt your opponent, to hurt them so much that they can't continue, whether that be through submissions, whether it be through striking, whether it be through exhaustion, whatever it might be. That's the objective of the game, is to hurt your opponent so much that they can't fight anymore. So twisting someone's knee apart is an effective technique, and I would never want to ban it. That's not what my stance is. I just don't like them. And in fact, I hate them because you are damaging someone's knee. And when you do that, you're possibly ruining the rest of their career. For the UFC, you're ruining like possibly a talented fighter, possibly a champion. You never know. And you're ruining this guy's ability to make money. Again, effective technique. I'm not saying they shouldn't exist. I'm just not a fan of them. And yes, there's an argument to be made that they could get punched in the head one time and not be able to continue. Totally get it. They could break their arm, but if you know anything about knee injuries, they're much worse than arm injuries. Like, yes, a shoulder injury is bad and it's hard to recover from, but it's possible. Knee injuries are a real mother. Like, the surgery sucks. The strength never really fully comes back, and usually if it comes back, it's because you took something to strengthen up your muscles around there, right? Or you got injections of something to help reestablish those tendons. So that's the first reason I don't like him, is because of the way it damages the opponent. Knocking someone out is one thing. I mean, again, what do I love watching people lose consciousness? No. Like, I'm not a blood and guts guy. I enjoy the competition, and I understand that's a finish. And yeah, I get excited just like anybody else. But when I see a leg lock and a knee, I don't think I've ever been excited. I don't think I've ever been like, hell yeah, that guy got his knee torn apart. Woo! Never once have I been like that. Reason numero dos. It's boring. It's boring, man. Like, what's the situation that it's not boring? You get a quick finish. Okay. And now you go back to my first reason, where the guy's knee takes damage. Not a fan of that. So that's part of number two. And what's the other side of it? You're rolling for leg locks, and now neither one of the guys is striking. Neither one of them is really doing anything, and we end up situations like in the first round where they're just sitting there, right? And on top of that, it's as being an effective technique, it requires all four of your limbs most of the time to go for it. So you can't be defending your face if your hands and your legs are on a leg. So you will get punched in the face. So I'm not a fan when people go for it, because now, they're exposing themselves. But, there's situations where you roll under to grab a leg so you can change position. There's situations where it's effective because you can get a finish that way. Absolutely. I'm not saying it should be a banned technique. I just don't like him. I fucking hate him. Reason number three. When somebody's whole game plan revolves around leg locks, you get fights like this. Not only was it boring, it's outright illegal. I don't mean, like, again, I don't mean it should be banned. It's that he sat on the ground probably more than he stood up in this fight. Sat on the ground. Didn't take him to the ground. Wasn't holding onto the leg while he was on the ground. He sat on the ground by himself like a fucking toddler, waiting for Hooker to hopefully engage with him. You can't do that. You have to actively be engaging. You have to actively be fighting. You can get warned for stalling. This is tantamount to stalling to me. It's horrible. And real quick note here. Joe is getting a lot of love. Lots of excitement. People saying they're excited to see Joe. Dan Hooker said, "I love you, Joe." Gave him a kiss on the head. Love to see it. I really do. It's not even about who Joe is. It's just, I love seeing fighters like that. Seeing Dan Hooker, knowing what he went through during the whole pandemic thing, not being able to see his family, not being able to go hug his family, having to stay across a barrier, and having to train away from his family because of the situation in Australia. Seeing this guy just light up with joy, not because of win, but well, because of the win, but just because he gets to do what he loves and he knows that he doesn't have to be isolated from his family for 6 months because of it. Like seeing your son or your daughter on a regular basis and then saying like, well, I can either see them or I can go do my job so that they have food on the table. I mean, for dads and moms out there who work, I mean, I'm sure we all make this decision in certain amounts, but how many of us have done that? I mean, I know, like, there's oil rig workers, there's people in the military, like, when I was on deployment, I was in a relationship, but I didn't have children at the time, and I knew people who did. So I know this isn't a unique situation, and it's not woe is me all the time. But anybody who has to spend time, choose between taking care of their family or seeing their family, that's a rough decision, man. And it's a life he chose, and I understand this was one of the consequences of it. But it wasn't. It was an externality that was imposed on him that caused it. Obviously, being away from your family is part of the job, but not for that long. And just to see the joy on his face, seeing real joy and real happiness, I love it. I love seeing that from people. I love seeing it in fighters. I love it. It was such a good moment. Made me really happy, and that was a great way to kick off the main card. To be honest with you, kind of set me up for failure with immediately with Frankie Edgar getting knocked out in his retirement fight, and then watching kind of the shit show that transpired. Not the shit show. There was a decent card, decent fights on there. Ah, Anyway, if you made it this far, I made it through both of my rants. I really appreciate it. It means a lot to me. If this is the only video you watch this weekend, dude, I appreciate your time. I really do. It means so much that you made it this far. Subscribe to the channel, please, because if you made it this far, you'll like everything I do. I break down fights every single week, 2 or 3 videos breaking down every UFC fight. I do Bellator, PFL, all that stuff. If you're looking for the prelims, or it's going to be in the next video, I'll put that out tomorrow if you're watching tonight. Love y'all. I really do. It means a lot to me, you guys all being here. I love doing this stuff, and I really enjoy the fact that I've gotten some more engagement and more people watching. So, love y'all. Have an amazing week.